This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
Everybody, it's Greg Bedard here with the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast. We are brought to you by Prizepicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the Prizepicks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prizepicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Prizepicks, run your game. And take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Okay, so it's been a couple days since I've been on here. There's been a lot going on. And, as far as Stefon Diggs and all that, Ja'Whaun Bentley being released, we'll talk about both those things, along with are we getting an indication of how the draft is going to play out? And of course, Will Campbell's arms now magically are 33 inches. Let's start with Diggs. And I was kind of waiting for this until his contract information came out. Not that I really care how much the Patriots are paying him, but, like I said at the time, or wrote at the time, I think it was reported as like 3 years, $63 million. Like, there was no chance that that was a real 3-year contract or that he would have much of a chance to see $69 million. We now, thanks to Albert Breer, we now have the numbers, but we'll get to that in a second. But let's start off with the acquisition of Stefon Diggs. Do I like it? Yes. Do I think it checks a box, as Felger likes to replay our interaction? I would say, if you were looking at it as the Patriots were lacking a left tackle, a left guard, a wide receiver 1, and wide receiver 2, does he check the box of wide receiver 2? He certainly doesn't for wide receiver 1. Not even close. Wide receiver 2, maybe in pencil, I would say. And that's just because he's 31 years old. And this would be, even if, say, they got Brandon Ayuk, who's also coming off an ACL. If they got him, I would say wide receiver 1 checked off in pencil. We have to see how these guys recover. And, yes, there are reports. And Stefon Diggs talked to reporters yesterday, and he said that he is way ahead of progress, or he's way ahead of schedule, I think is the way he put it. That's great. That doesn't mean, and we also have a report from Adam Schefter saying that he'll be cleared for week 1. That is extremely optimistic. I'm not saying it can't happen. Everybody heals differently. Diggs hasn't really had a major injury before. Maybe he's a unicorn. Maybe he's out there, and what would that be, like 5 or 6 months, or whatever it is. He got hurt in week 8, like the end of October. Remember, Kendrick Bourne the year before. Kendrick Bourne, good athlete as well. Don't think he really had a major injury as far as with his legs either. 2 years ago, he tore his ACL, and I think it was mid-October. He came back for the Patriots last year in early October. Was he the same guy? No. I'm not saying that Stefon Diggs can't be that guy that does come back at full speed, but you add in his age, 31 going on 32 in November, you would have to be a really optimistic Patriots fan to be like, they definitely checked the box. I think, if he's here in year 2, yeah, they checked the box. But for what he's going through right now, I don't see it as a fully checked box. Now, the player, I love the player. I also think that based on, talking to people, and I think we've talked about this before, with the anticipation that he might sign with the Patriots have plenty of intel, whether it's Todd Downing, Ben McDaniels, who Stefon Diggs mentioned in his press conference, Nick Caserio. And the other thing is Stefon Diggs, and Mike Giardi wrote about Diggs and his experience with Diggs and Buffalo's experience with Diggs for BSJ for Saturday. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. And basically, Stefon Diggs sounds like one of these guys, similar to Randy Moss, to where, you can pretty much bank that for the first year he's gonna be in line. Beyond that, we'll have to see. Nobody really knows, and I don't really care all that much about that stuff. I mean, I do think the people in Houston loved him. He was one of these guys that, with their young receivers, he would work with them after practice, showed them how to be a pro. He would even work with some of the young cornerbacks and be like, look, this is what I'm thinking. This is how I'm trying to set you up. Like, all that stuff. And that's great. And I think he's going to bring that. The way he sounded the other day certainly sounds confident, sure of himself and all that stuff. So I think he's going to be fine. And, if he does come back, if he comes back 75% of what he was last year, especially in terms of his route running, that's good. I mean, I think that's going to be a net positive for the Patriots. But if you have dreams of Stefon Diggs being like, even based off his stats last year, through 8 games, that he's going to be some number 1 wide receiver, like I just don't think that's realistic. And I do think that the Patriots are still trying, that they will continue trying to get that number 1 receiver, whether it's Brandon Ayuk. And no, I'm not giving up on the dream of A.J. Brown. We'll see the way the Eagles draft plays out. If they grab a wide receiver in the second round, Howie's known to do things outside of the box. Howie Roseman, the GM with the Eagles. So I think that all that stuff is possible. If you told me that, let's say, entering, by the end of mandatory minicamp, say mid-June, that the Patriots had either traded for a wide receiver, drafted Travis Hunter as a wide receiver, traded up into the first round to get an offensive tackle, I would not be surprised by that. That's what they're trying to do. That now it takes 2 to tango. It just, you just can't snap your fingers and make it happen. But I do think that they aren't done yet. But Diggs, the player, I love him. I think he'll be good here. I'm just not checking a box until I see him on the field. I see how he can cut. I saw the way that Kendrick Bourne came back last year, and they're not the same player, obviously. But, I wasn't blown away with Kendrick for a large part of that season. Now, then again, Stefon Diggs is an excellent technician as far as being a wide receiver, and Kendrick Bourne is not. And that helps a lot. And the guy runs precise angles, routes, play fakes, kind of cooked Christian Gonzalez last year with the Texans when I think Nico Collins wasn't there. So I'm glad they got the player. Okay. Another aspect of Diggs on keeping sort of the expectations a little bit lower, because he is a great name and he was a great receiver in this league. I wouldn't say he's great anymore. I would say he's a good receiver, and the Patriots need good. They don't have enough good. So that's great. But let's also remember, going back, his last 19 regular season games and his 2 postseason games, 21 games, also falls into this. These are his averages over the last 19 regular season games. He has averaged 5.5 receptions a game and about 60 yards. And he has 6 touchdowns in 19 games. Does that scream to you number 1? Certainly not. Does it scream to you number 2? Iffy. And you got to also remember that in Houston, and this is part of why his numbers went down, but, those young receivers there, he was sort of like a third option, but, those guys also took a lot of coverage. So, Stefon Diggs could sort of fly under the radar. And this isn't just, with Houston, down the stretch, the second half of his tenure in Buffalo, it was a borderline disaster. Like I remember watching this on film, and I might have tweeted about it or written about it at the time, but he was no longer the same player. He didn't have the same quickness. He didn't have the same burst down the field. He couldn't get open down the field as much. The last, what was it? This is with Josh Allen. Sorry, I'm just trying to click on So in his last 11 games with Josh Allen, he averaged about 5 receptions a game and 50 yards, and he had 3 touchdowns in 11 games. That's with Josh Allen. And, there were some high-scoring games in there. Something was obviously amiss with them. But, again, this goes back to Stefon Diggs is a good receiver. He's not a great receiver. Yeah, you could say that makes him great in New England. I'm not going to argue with that. But let's just keep expectations in check, especially with an aging receiver coming off major knee surgery. We're just going to have to watch that. As far as the money, okay, this is what we got from Bilt the other day. The full guarantee, I think the initial guarantee was mentioned as 26 million or something like that. Fully guaranteed is 16.6 million. That's basically like a 1-year deal. And, that's fair. His base salary or his payment in 2025 is 18.5 million. That's a $12 million signing bonus, fully guaranteed. The base is 2.9 fully guaranteed. So that's about 15 million right there. 3.4 million in per game roster bonuses. So that's fair. And the Patriots there's a ton of protection for the team built into that, it's really a 1-year deal. And let's say he doesn't do much on the field. Let's say he doesn't get back until the midpoint of the season. So that's about, that's about $16 million for 1 year. That's fair. Again, like I said before, this is the same franchise that paid Nelson Aguilar, I think it was $22 million over 2 years, or for like a year and a half. First year, I think he got 12. So to pay Stefon Diggs 15, 16 million at a bare minimum, that's fine. That's fine with me. And, I don't really care about their money. It could go, so 2026, he would get 22.5 million. That would be assuming he's a really good number 2 and healthy. Same thing in 2027. But basically, it's a series of 1-year contracts for the Patriots. And, you never know. Stefon Diggs could also throw a temper tantrum and want to be out after a year or 2. So, the contract is good. I have no problem with the contract. I don't really think they even overpaid him all that much. So, good job by the Patriots on that. We will be back in 1 second. Prizepicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks. I love sitting down for a game, making my picks, rooting for my picks. I know some guys like to go over sports, different sports all in there. You could do that too. And that's fun too. That's not the way I do it because I'm not that bright. I need to just concentrate on one game at a time. Prizepicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Of course, Massachusetts as well. The app is really easy to use to create a lineup. All you do is pick more or less on a few player stats for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. Of course, they have baseball, hockey, esports, golf, you name it, they got it. The second half of the basketball season is here, and the race to the playoffs is heating up on Prizepicks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Don't miss your chance to cash in as the league's best fight for playoff positioning. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. Okay, now, Ja'Whaun Bentley was released this week. If you listened to our previous podcast or a couple podcasts ago with Nick Cattles, you would not have been surprised by this move. You might have been mildly surprised that it wasn't Jelani Tavai at first, but Ja'Whaun Bentley was released. Multiple captain, Mike linebacker, really good dude, really good Patriot. but you could see the writing was on the wall. First, you bring in Robert Spillane, and somebody, around the team told me he's more of a Mike. He's the Mike. That's Ja'Whaun Bentley's position. Then they signed Jack Gibbons, who is more of a weak side linebacker, has been in the scheme before. And then they match, a pretty good 2-year offer to Robert Spillane. So now you have 3 linebackers. Match the offer sheet for Christian Ellis. Sorry about that. So, you knew this was going to happen. They wanted to get faster on defense in general, to have a fast defense, especially the way Vrabel wants to play and Terrell Williams wants to play. You need to have faster linebackers. This is something we've been talking about ad nauseum for years with the Patriots. And the old adage is, if your middle linebacker is slow or your linebackers are slow in general, your defense is slow. And the Patriots have been too slow in recent years. That includes Ja'Whaun Bentley. That includes Tavai. So, sad to see Ja'Whaun Bentley go. Do I think he could have survived here? Yes, but it's just like, it's very similar to David Andrews. You're talking about captains, have been here, stalwarts, coming off season-ending injuries, probably flunked the physical, all that stuff. It's certainly curious, but this is the way that they wanted to go. Mike Vrabel told us, substantial change was coming with this roster, and we have seen it, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So with that, you just wonder who's next. We mentioned, of course, I'm surprised that Jahlani Tavai is still here. I don't know if they're going to try to trade him or what it is, but guys that I think that could still be on the way out. Jahlani Tavai, he's versatile. He's definitely not a stand-up linebacker in this scheme. He could play some edge, similar to like a Kyle Van Noy. He's always been sort of that type of player. But, he's a big physical linebacker. I just don't see how he's a fit for what they're doing here. Kendrick Bourne probably sticks until at least the draft. But with Diggs coming in, a wide receiver at some point in the draft, I would think, or a trade, I have a hard time seeing it. And, love the personality, good player, solid player when he's been here. Did a good job in Josh McDaniels' offense the last time he was in it. Took the team a lot to get him to that point. He's one of these guys who has issues with his route running, where to line up, all that stuff. And the other thing is, he is a good dude. He's got the smile. He's got the personality, vibe. He's dancing all over the place. That's awesome. But he's also been here in part of that room as the room has imploded. It's not like his leadership really accounted for anything or helped anything. So why would you keep him around now, especially when you have guys, like Diggs and the wide receiver who Mac Hollins, who these guys are pros. They know what they're doing. They're technicians. Why the need to keep Kendrick Bourne around? I just don't know. And it's getting very crowded, especially you figure they're going to keep Polk for at least one more year. You figure Booty has a good chance to stick around, considering he was productive. Won't forget, him kind of toasting Darryl Stingley Jr., who just got a humongous contract from the Houston Texans. And then, we'll see on guys like Javon Baker and things like that. So, other guys that I think could be gone, City So / Cole Strange. So imploded last year, as we all know. It's getting a little crowded there. You figure that they would give Cole Strange a little bit more time. I do not think it's going to be at center. If they had an inkling that Cole Strange was their future center, they never would have signed Garrett Bradbury. So, could he back up there? Yeah, but talking to people around the team, they just think center is not an option for him. And we'll have to see how that plays out. Jabril Peppers, not sure he's fast enough for this new scheme. Certainly has the mentality, and he hits. Vrabel might like that. He also got into trouble last year. The Patriots brought in Marcus Epps and re-signed Jalen Hawkins. They're overloaded at strong safety again. Epps and Hawkins are more free safety. How many strong safeties do you need? Do you want to bring in somebody younger? Do you want to draft somebody? That sort of thing. Marte Mapu, he has not been able to stay healthy at all. Even I remember, I think I was watching the Bills game, the last game of the season, and I think at one point he was questionable return. I mean, he's small. He gets hurt like all the time. I mean, yes, I think he's smart. I think he could do something in this scheme, but Vrabel really likes to play his linebackers. Mapu makes sense as more of a sub linebacker. Could he be some sort of slot like Patrick Chung or something like that? I don't know. I mean, again, his durability is a big issue. And then Anthony Jennings. Vrabel wants to attack with speed on the edge. Jennings is a good player and has improved a lot over his course of his career here in New England, but his forte is setting the edge in the run game, and that's not really an emphasis for these guys. I do think that Jennings can play in this scheme, and I think he's better than people give him credit for, but it would not surprise me if they moved on from him at some point. Couple other things I wanted to touch on. The Texans, the Burt Breer reported the contract terms for Cam Robinson, his 1 year, $12 million deal. Cam Robinson was an option at left tackle, drafted by Doug Marrone. He was out there. Just wondering why nothing happened with the Patriots. He only got $8.75 million signing bonus, and his base is $2 million guaranteed. So that's $10 million for a possible starting left tackle. You look at those numbers, and all you do is you ask the question, why wouldn't the Patriots do this? And it has to be, and I think Giardi's hinted at this, it has to be about Robinson's makeup, his attitude, durability, whatever. I read that, and it's because they don't like something about the player. They don't think he's going to be a fit. And they certainly have the intel on Cam Robinson. So that didn't get done. A little bit disappointing. Diggs isn't 100% solid as far as the mix in the room. I think he's better than people give him credit for. But you took a little bit of a risk there. Don't take a risk on Cam Robinson just to give it a shot. I mean, $11 million. I think that would have been worth the shot, but they must not like him for some reason, or else I think they would have done it. We will talk a little bit about the draft.
At Bilt Rewards, a quick PSA for anybody who rents, and if you have not heard of Bilt, you are about to thank me. Earning points on rent is easy and now a reality. When you pay your rent through Bilt, you don't have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. So let me just break it all down for you. Right now, there's no cost to join Bilt, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on everyday spending. Bilt points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world that you can redeem your Bilt points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards future rent payments and unique experiences that only Bilt members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning those points today by going to joinbilt.com/SOS. Again, that's joinbilt.com/SOS. joinbilt.com/SOS. Make sure to use that URL so they know we sent you. Joinbilt.com/SOS to start earning points on your rent payments today.
Okay. wanted to finish up here with a couple of draft notes and a little bit of draft discussion. So, apparently the Patriots will reportedly have a chance to meet with Abdul Carter. That was reported by Bert again. Great job, Bert. He is set to meet with New England on a private visit. Abdul Carter is going to be a very exclusive group, basically the top 4 in the draft. He doesn't think he's getting past 4, so he's going to meet with the Titans, the Browns, the Giants, and the Patriots, and that's it. That gets us into, there's been a lot of discussion this week. We know the Giants have signed 2 quarterbacks. They have signed Jameis Winston at backup money. They have signed Russell Wilson. Does that mean that they are out on Shedeur Sanders at number 3? Opinions are differing on that. I will say that Adam Schefter was on, I think it was NFL Live recently, and I think it was Matt Williamson tried to say that that Abdul Carter could possibly get to the Patriots, and Schefter just shook his head. He basically said it's likely that Abdul Carter goes number 2 to the Browns. So that means Cam Ward at 1, Abdul Carter at 2, and now you're down to the Giants. Okay. And do they go Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter? Schefter and others, people that I trust with their Giants reporting, have said that they could take Sanders at number 3. I think that is a possibility. I mean, look, if you're Brian Daboll and you're Joe Shane, the GM, and you have no job security, okay, the best plan to make sure that you hold on to your job is give yourself veteran options. They also have Tommy DeVito. Who cares? Give yourself veteran options to hit the ground running as quickly as possible this season. And, if I were in their shoes, I would draft Shedeur Sanders if my evaluation was good on him, if I thought that he had the right stuff. And, people that I trust in this process, whether it's Chris Sims and other guys, they think that Sanders is pretty good. Do I think he's transformational? No. Do I think he's elite? No. But, if you're Brian Daboll and you want job security, what better way to make you cover everything than, sign 2 veterans? And, look at Russell Wilson is not staying long at any place. Nobody wants him after a certain amount of time. And do you think, they think, let's say the Giants do draft Sanders, and at some point in time, maybe it's the Drake May sort of plan or what have you, where it's 4 games, 8 games, whatever, getting him trained up to the point, as soon as they think that maybe the season is slipping away or something along those lines, wouldn't it be good to, who are you going to go to? Jameis Winston? No. You want to put, let's play this out. Let's say that you're the Giants and you start 2-2 under Russell Wilson. Basically hovering around 500. Suddenly there's a 2-game losing streak. Now you're 4-6, something along those lines. And it looks like things are teetering. The knives are out in New York. What are you going to do? Who are you going to turn to if you're Brian Daboll? Are you going to turn to Jameis Winston? No. You would rather have Shedeur Sanders. You put Shedeur Sanders in there, and he plays well. You win some games. Maybe you make a playoff push. You don't want to do the Gerard Mayo thing with Drake May, which is win 1 game that Drake May starts. Don't do that because you won't be back. But you put Sanders in. If it doesn't work with Russell Wilson, you put Jameis Winston in and say he does Jameis Winston things, and you're 500 the rest of the way. You're gone. It's over. You put Sanders in at 4-6, and he plays above 500, keeps you in it to the end, and you guys fight hard, do all those things, then you're probably back for another year if you're Brian Daboll. So, I know a lot of people have written off the Giants at quarterback. We'll see how this whole process plays out, but I don't think so. Of course, I'm also biased because I want Travis Hunter to get to the Patriots, and I don't want the Patriots to have to draft Will Graham too early or Mason Graham or, what have you. I want Travis Hunter here. I completely agree with Chris Sims where he's over the moon about Travis Hunter as a wide receiver. I totally agree with him. I think he would be spectacular. And now, if you have Travis Hunter, you have Stefon Diggs, you have Mac Hollins, you have Demario Douglas, you trade up into the bottom of the first round and get whether it's Josh Simmons or Kelvin Banks or whoever. Now you're talking about something that the Patriots have really built something this offseason and are really ascending. I think they're going to be ascending anyways with the defense and Vrabel and all that stuff. But yeah, I really want Travis Hunter, and I will be bummed if the Giants take Travis Hunter. Hopefully the Patriots in that scenario can trade down. And if they really like Will Campbell, trade down, pick up more draft assets, get the guy that you want, but also have a couple of extra picks. That would be Travis Hunter is number one for me. Trade down for a Will Campbell or whoever they think is the best left tackle in the draft. Pick up another pick so you can maybe go double dip at wide receiver in the second round, that type of thing. Maybe trade up for someone, sort of the secondary receivers in the draft. That would be the other option. Sticking and picking for Will Campbell, whose arms, if you haven't heard about this, his arms are suddenly now 33 inches. It doesn't really matter all that much to me. I've always been at 32 and 7/8, which is basically 33 inches. But I still think 4 is too early for Will Campbell. If we're talking 10 to 15, okay, fine. And you're picking up another asset that you can use and maybe double dip at offensive tackle with one of those secondary guys. So now you can see, exactly what you have. Maybe you get 2 tackles. Maybe Will Campbell can play left tackle, and suddenly you get, Kelvin Banks or Josh Simmons in their right tackles. That's the ideal scenario for me with the Patriots. So that's it for me right now. I will be headed to the league meetings this week. I'll be talking to you at some point this week about it. It'll be very busy down there in Palm Beach. I know you guys feel bad for me, but thanks for listening. And make sure you check out Prizepicks and Game Time and subscribe, rate, review, all that stuff for the podcast. Really helps us out a lot. So I will see you guys next week.